Hey everybody, it's Mike Bruning. Welcome to the Film Cage. And today I'm talking with filmmaker Wesley Mellott and his
Hello.
and his awesome dog Minnie. And Wesley's recent films include Stalked and Trick or Treat 2. Hey Wesley, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So I just kind of really want to dive into Stalked right now.
hmm
It's very cool. I watched it, and
Thank
for
you.
you, yeah, you said it's a proof of concept for something longer you want to do, like you're actively kind of pitching a feature. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, originally we made Stalked as kind of to give you a little bit of backstory. Sorry, my dog's getting out of hand right now. Mini stay. To give you a little bit of backstory, my YouTube channel, our production company, Thinking Art Entertainment, we've done this kind of like horror related festival every Halloween, and it's called Short Scares. And the year of the COVID like lockdowns and everything, we had went into production on two short films. One was Stalked and one was Goodbye. And we made Stalked just as part of that Short Scares series. And then, like, after we wrapped up the short and we were submitting it to some film festivals and everything, we kind of really realized, like, how much more we could develop with that plot. And from there, me and my co-writer Rob Cacagna really just kind of sat down and hashed out a full feature-length script. And now we're using the short film as proof of concept, like you said, for the feature that we're actively pitching and developing.
So we're looking for a ghost town. Yeah, that's kind of our thing. Have you even watched our channel?
Yeah, it's very cool. So where did you guys come up with the idea for Stalked?
I had written a short film a couple of years ago that revolved around vloggers who specialized in urban exploration, which is basically just filming abandoned places. And it had nothing to do with the short film Stalked at that point. Our other producer, Brittany, really wanted to do a Scarecrow movie. And that was kind of like the impetus where we thought, like, okay, well, what if we start taking bits and pieces of concepts that we already have kind of developed and seeing how they can work together to kind of fit, everybody's vision.
Right. You know what I really like about it too is it has like a classic horror film feel to it. Like
Thank you.
yeah, I really like that. And the other thing you did, which was really cool, was really getting some character development in there, which is difficult in a short film.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's hard. So maybe you can explain a little bit about, what went into that for you guys, why you chose these three characters to focus on.
Well, so I didn't. The only part of the writing process for the original Stalked was the short film Stalked, I should say, was I was really only involved in the story writing process, and I kind of let our screenplay writer for the short and my co-writer for the feature, Rob Cacagna, pretty much handle the entire script. He would send us drafts, and I would say, well, like, what if we did this? Because I think it more like kind of steers in a path that I'm like directorially familiar with or interested in. And it was just conversations like that that kind of built the characters into what they were. But really, it was Rob Cacagna who came up with all of the characters and the characterizations.
What's your problem with me? No problem? Bullshit. You've been giving me attitude since we met. Look, can we just get the shots we need and get out of here, please? Sure, sweetie.
So tell me a little bit about your process, like when you're filming And I know you're like a super hands-on filmmaker, which I love because
Hmm.
I love getting my hands on everything too, directing, shooting, editing. And you've done that, and people just take a look at Wesley's IMDb page and you'll just be like, what the heck? This guy's like he does it all. And um I love that process as a filmmaker. And I think,
Hmm.
if you want to be a filmmaker, I encourage people, you should be doing everything as much as possible to learn the craft.
Right. Especially when you're first starting out.
Right. And to me, what it does is it helps you appreciate what the other departments do, you
Absolutely.
know, and because you've done it. Because a lot of people, they'll be, oh, I'm afraid to edit,
Hmm.
I don't like, or I don't like, shooting. But I think it improves you as a filmmaker, um, having all those skills. And
Right.
so tell me, like, what were some of your roles on Stalked?
So I was the director. I contributed to the story outline and everything, and then I was also the editor, and I was the B camera op on certain scenes where that was needed.
Mm-hmm. And
And actually, sorry, I actually did also. I was one of the Foley designers as well on the end product.
oh, that's cool. That's got to be fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I actually handled all of the any sound that was like somebody touching or moving a camera. That's like me sitting there and figuring out what would work.
Can you hurry it up? We already lost the sun.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about the horror genre as a filmmaker is this ability to kind of work in all areas. And you see it with other horror filmmakers like Ty West, like
Hmm.
no one's afraid to edit their own films, and I love that. What's that like for you? Um, I think one of the problems too is like you're very close to your own material. And so
Right.
how are you staying objective and when you're actually in the editing process?
So, first I'll kind of talk about a little bit about my process as a director to fully answer that question. So, I'm very meticulous with my planning. Like every single shot of the movie is not only, I'm not very good at storyboards. I'll draw them if I have to like physically show somebody like what I'm trying to like convey with a certain shot, but I would much rather like physically go to the location with my DP beforehand and basically like show him every single frame through like pictures and like sample videos and stuff like that. But I have every single shot of the movie planned out in my head before we even set foot on step. And the entire movie is also basically edited in my head. And then, there's things with like rhythm and pacing and stuff like that that you can never really be sure of until you're in the editing room. But I at least have, a full game plan going into the shoot.
That was pretty good. Cut. Cut for real.
Now, the shooting day has all kinds of obstacles, and you can throw out your plan based on a number of reasons. But to answer your question about staying objective, I've come from a place where I'm like really okay with like giving myself kind of like brutal honesty. And I think that's kind of important for a lot of directors to know because I think, especially when you're first starting out, I think there is kind of a tendency for filmmakers to be a little bit maybe too self-indulgent. And maybe I am to a fault, but that's where your producing partners and stuff can come into play. So when I do like a full rough cut of the film or an assembly cut or whatever, I send it to my producers, the writer, and just kind of see like, okay, is there anything that isn't working?
Right. And one thing I've sort of discovered is that you don't see beyond the frame. In other words, don't go, oh, we spent so long on that shot that day, and
Yep.
and then this was that, and we were on set, but it was great on set and all this stuff. No, when you're in the editing bay, it is this is the frame, this is what happened. Is it is it working?
Yeah, and actually, one of the notes I had gotten back from one of our other producers, Matt Hacker, was whenever I sent out the first cut of Stalked, he said that he was surprised like how much little coverage that I used in the edit, because like we really kind of broke things down and we had a lot more shots, but all that stuff just ended up on the cutting room floor because it just kind of like broke away from what I was trying to do with the scenes.
Yeah, see, now that's cool that you're able to like let that stuff go, because you know, you're like, oh my god, it took so long to set this up and we got so much coverage.
Yeah, there's a lot of good shots in there, but no one will ever see them.
Because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And
Right, correct.
you can't just try to, you know, shoehorn it in.
Yep.
And so tell me a little bit about how you got interested in the horror genre.
So I had always been interested in horror, like as long as I can, like ever since being a little kid and being introduced to, you know, Michael Myers and Jason and the Scream movies. And I grew up and kind of fell out of the horror genre. That's kind of, I would say partly because of like going to like a film school where they just kind of like slam like quality films down your throat and basically try to teach you like, oh, well, this is an example of bad filmmaking and stuff like that. But after I had gotten out of school and I was really starting to go down the journey of becoming a filmmaker of my own, I really realized just how much I like suspense and tension. And obviously suspense and tension are huge aspects in the horror genre. And I really wanted to get better with my craft and how to like convey certain things with those ideas. And so I decided that maybe I should try a couple horror films where I can really try to get a good practice of creating suspense and tension through camera movements, pacing, etc. And it was really within those films, like doing those, I would say like practice films, for lack of a better word, where I really kind of just fell in love with the horror genre all over again. It reminded me what I loved about them as a kid in the first place. And ever since, I've just been like a huge kind of like a born again horror fan.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point about film school. And I went to film school as well. And you leave film school thinking you're going to be the next Stanley Kubrick. And then...
Yeah, even recently on Friday I had another filmmaker who's going to film school. He reached out to me and was asking me for advice and stuff, and he told me that his professor calls him the horror guy, as basically like like a derogatory term. And it just goes to show you like how horror is kind of like frowned upon in the mainstream, I would say, and it's kind of sad.
It is, and we have so many great classic horror films, Psycho to The Shining, Rosemary's Baby. I mean, these are all incredibly well-made films, you know.
Right, and then you get amazing performances like Mia Goth in Pearl,
right,
and Toni Collette in Hereditary, that are really Academy Award not like worthy performances, and they're completely overlooked by the Academy because of the genre.
Hey, you guys. We are finally here. 7 hours of driving has brought us to...
The middle of nowhere.
Nope, not the middle of nowhere.
And so you incorporated this pretty cool element. You have these two characters who are YouTubers. And what I kind of liked about that too is it felt a little like a found footage film. Like it was pretty cool modern way of doing that. And what did you use to shoot them on? Like, was it just a consumer camera as opposed to what you were shooting the film on?
Yeah, so we shot all the vlog sequences on, I believe it was the Sony A7 III, not the A7S III, but the A7 III. And then the actual short film was shot on the Blackmagic Pocket 6K. Actually, I should say that part of it was shot on the 6K, and then part of it was shot on the Ursa Mini.
What did you like about the 6K?
It has a lot better low light than the Ursa Mini, which is one of our primary reasons for using it over the Ursa. So all of our night sequences were shot on the 6K. And it has fairly good dynamic range for its price point. So, and also it has a really good image for its price point. But the A7, we chose that because of its autofocus capabilities. So our DP would actually get up and, like, for the scene where the character of Mike, played by Buddy Kane, is vlogging at the Scarecrow, he basically had Buddy, like, extend his hand and act like he was gripping the camera, but it's really our DP Adam who's, like, controlling every little movement.
So where do you guys stand right now with the film? Have you said you, like, wrote it into a feature-length script? Are you out there pitching?
Yeah, so we've done, it's a full, I think, like 105-page script. We've gone through, I think we're up to 7 drafts now, and it's very fleshed out, have a full budget and everything, and we've been actively pitching to producers, sales agents, distributors, all just trying to get the money to make the thing, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
Have you ever gone the Indiegogo route, the raising money that way?
So me and my producing partner Andrew Glessner did a Kickstarter, like, back in, I want to say it was like 2012, for a feature film that we did way back then. It was basically our secondary film school. And that was, we basically did it for, I think it was like $2,000, and shot the entire feature for $2,000. But after that, we had kind of vowed to, never do that again unless we actually had, a full feature that we thought was going to go somewhere. And we don't want to be those type of filmmakers that are trying to basically make a ton of films and use, like, a crowdfunding campaign for every film that they make. Because I see a lot of people out there that are like, it feels like they're making a film like every 6 months, and every 6 months I'm getting like an invite to contribute to somebody's Indiegogo, and I don't know, that doesn't feel right to me, and so I don't want to do that.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting someone so tall.
So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
Which went viral for you. So why don't you just explain, like, Trick or Treat and how that happened?
Yeah, so again, going back to the Short Scares, kind of like film festival we do for Halloween every year, this was, again, another short that we were making for that, and it just, I don't know what happened. It just blew up. Like, people really responded to it. And again, this was kind of another idea where it came from a short film that I had written years ago, and then, like, through conversations with my producing partners, that ended up leading to the, the final product that everybody sees.
No, please, no.
So it's kind of funny how, at least for me, I don't know how it is for you or any other filmmakers out there, how, like, kind of unproduced work that's just sitting on a shelf somewhere, you might not make that whole piece, but there's pieces of it that you find that can work in this other thing that you're actively passionate about at that time.
Right, and then you've since gone on to make Trick or Treat 2.
Come on.
Trick or Treat 1 did so well, and so many people were wanting a sequel, where I just really, kind of would just sit and think about, like, okay, well, what worked with the first one? Why did people like it? And what can I do as a filmmaker that kind of plays upon the audience's expectations now that they've seen the first one, which was kind of my whole approaching point to the sequel. So, for instance, with Trick or Treat, you don't really know what the magician or the trick or treater, what he's doing for like the first half of the film. But then, you watch the thing and realize basically it's a slasher film, and then you see the second one, and I really wanted to play on the audience's expectations now that they know his real motivations.
You don't talk?
Yeah, there's definitely something very unsettling about that character. And I think it's part of like trying to communicate with someone who will not talk back to you. And there's it's just unnerving. So I really enjoyed it. Well, everybody, I highly recommend you take a look at Stalked and Trick or Treat and Trick or Treat 2. They're great short films. Wesley, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on.
Excellent. And best of luck with Stalked. I know it's going to make a great feature film.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.